The sun hung heavy over the African savanna, its golden rays shimmering across endless fields of dry grass that swayed and whispered in the wind. The air was thick with heat, the kind that makes the ground crack and mirages dance on the horizon. Insects hummed lazily, and somewhere far off a bird called out, a lonely cry that echoed across the stillness. It was a place of beauty and danger, where life and death met under the same sun. And in the heart of this unforgiving wilderness, a man was tied to a tree. His name was Daniel, a 32-year-old wildlife photographer who had spent most of his life chasing the untamed. He believed that to capture the soul of nature, one had to live within it. For weeks, he had been tracking a pride of lions rumored to roam this part of the savanna, led by a massive male with a scar across one eye. Locals spoke of him in hushed tones, calling him Kumba, the ghost lion. Some said he was the last of his bloodline. Others claimed he had survived battles with hunters, traps, and even hyenas. To Daniel, he was the ultimate subject, a living legend waiting to be photographed. But legends, Daniel was about to learn, come at a price. 3 days earlier, his mission had gone wrong. He had stumbled upon a group of poachers setting traps near a watering hole. Daniel had tried to photograph them in secret, hoping to expose their crimes. But the men caught him. They took his camera, smashed it against a rock, and laughed at his pleas. Then, instead of killing him outright, they decided to let the savanna do their work. They tied him to a tree, hands bound, ankles lashed tight, leaving him under the burning sun with no food, no water, and no hope. "Let the lions find you," one of them had sneered before walking away. That was 2 sunsets ago. Now Daniel's throat burned like fire. His lips were cracked, his tongue swollen. The ropes had cut into his skin, drawing thin lines of blood down his wrists. His vision blurred every few seconds, the world spinning between light and shadow. He could hear his own heartbeat, slow and heavy, echoing inside his head. He tried calling for help, though his voice was little more than a rasp. The endless fields swallowed his cries. No one was coming. Hours passed. The sun sank lower, painting the sky in bruised shades of red and gold. The shadows stretched long and dark. And then, just as the first stars began to appear, a sound broke the silence. A distant rustle, soft at first, then clearer. Daniel's body tensed. The grass was moving. Something was out there. He turned his head as much as he could, trying to see through the tall blades. His pulse quickened. Maybe it was a zebra, or a hyena, or no. The rustle was too heavy, too deliberate. Then came a low, deep growl, a sound that didn't just fill the air but vibrated through his chest. Daniel froze. He knew that sound. Every instinct told him what was coming. From the shadows, 2 golden eyes glowed like embers. They blinked once, slowly, and then the figure stepped forward. A lion. Daniel's breath hitched. The beast was enormous. His mane shimmered under the fading light, a thick halo of gold and black. Muscles rippled beneath his skin with every step, his paws silent yet powerful. There was a deep scar running down one side of his face through his right eye, a mark of battles survived. It was him, Kumba, the very lion Daniel had come to find. But this was not how he imagined their first meeting. The lion moved closer, each step deliberate, his head low, eyes locked on Daniel. The man couldn't move even if he wanted to. The ropes held him fast, digging into his flesh. Sweat trickled down his temples as his heart hammered in his chest. He could almost hear his blood rushing through his ears. Kumba circled him slowly, his tail flicking lazily, his gaze never leaving its mark. Daniel could feel the animal's breath, hot and heavy against his skin. The scent of the wild surrounded him. Earth, musk, and something ancient. The lion sniffed the air, then leaned closer, his nose brushing Daniel's arm. The man shuddered. He could feel the texture of the lion's whiskers against his skin, could hear the soft rumble of breath from that mighty chest. He shut his eyes tight, whispering a silent prayer. Any moment now, he thought. Any moment, and it would be over. But the lion didn't attack. Instead, he sniffed again, tilting his head slightly, almost curious. His golden eyes narrowed, studying the man as if trying to understand why this strange creature was tied to a tree and trembling like prey. Then, unexpectedly, Kumba let out a deep, rumbling grunt. Not of aggression, but something more like confusion. He paced back and forth, his mane catching the faint moonlight. Daniel dared to open his eyes again. He saw the lion glance toward the forest beyond the clearing, then back at him, as though torn between instincts. The photographer's mind raced. He remembered stories locals had told him, how lions, despite their ferocity, sometimes showed an uncanny sense of judgment. Some said they could tell the difference between hunters and the innocent. Could Kumba somehow sense he wasn't a threat? Then, from behind the trees, another sound came, the crack of branches followed by hushed voices. Daniel's blood ran cold. He recognized those voices. The poachers. Kumba's ears twitched. His head lifted sharply. He let out a low growl that rolled through the air like thunder. Daniel could see his muscles tighten, his tail flick faster. The lion turned toward the noise, his posture shifting from calm to alert in an instant. The men stepped into the clearing, rifles slung over their shoulders. Their laughter stopped the moment they saw the massive lion standing between them and Daniel. For a heartbeat, no one moved. The night seemed to hold its breath. "Shoot it," one of them whispered harshly, fumbling for his gun. But before he could aim, Kumba roared. The sound was deafening, an explosion of power that sent birds flying from the trees and dust rising from the ground. Even Daniel felt the vibration shake through his chest. The poachers staggered backward, panic flooding their faces. The lion took a step forward, teeth bared, mane bristling. His eyes blazed with fury. He wasn't just protecting his territory. He was protecting Daniel. One of the men fired. The shot cracked through the air, echoing across the plains. Daniel flinched, expecting the lion to fall, but Kumba barely flinched. The bullet had grazed his shoulder, nothing more. He roared again, louder this time, and charged. The clearing erupted in chaos. The men screamed and scattered, tripping over roots and rocks in their desperate attempt to flee. Kumba lunged at the nearest one, swiping with a massive paw. The man went down, his gun flying from his hand. The lion stood over him, growling low but did not strike again. Instead, he turned toward the others, his eyes blazing like fire. That was enough. They dropped their weapons and vanished into the darkness, their footsteps fading into silence. The only sound left was the heavy breathing of man and beast. Kumba turned back toward Daniel, his chest heaving. Blood trickled from the shallow wound on his shoulder, glinting in the moonlight. He approached slowly, his movements no longer threatening but deliberate, almost thoughtful. Daniel, too weak to speak, watched in awe as the lion stopped beside him and lowered his head. For a moment, Kumba sniffed at the ropes binding Daniel's hands. Then, with surprising gentleness, he began clawing at them. The thick fibers strained, frayed, and finally snapped. Daniel's arms fell limp, the feeling of freedom washing over him like cool water. He looked up, tears filling his eyes as the lion stepped back. They stared at each other, two beings from opposite worlds bound by a strange, unspoken understanding. Daniel could feel gratitude swelling in his chest, though he had no words to express it. The lion tilted his head, as if studying the man one last time, then turned away. Kumba walked into the tall grass, his massive form blending into the golden sea under the moonlight. With each step, the grass parted and closed again, until there was no sign he'd ever been there, only a faint echo of his roar lingering in the night. Daniel slumped against the tree, exhausted and trembling, his body aching from thirst and fear. But his heart was alive, more alive than it had ever been. He looked toward the horizon, where the moon glowed over the endless plains, and whispered softly, "Thank you." The savannah was silent again, but somehow it felt different. Warmer, almost watching. Somewhere out there, the ghost lion had returned to his pride, leaving behind a story that no camera could ever capture. And as Daniel drifted into a fragile sleep, the last thing he saw was the faint movement of the grass under the moonlight, like a golden mane fading into the wild. He had come to find a lion, but what he found instead was something far greater, mercy in the heart of the wild.